Good afternoon. Well, I'm here to talk about India's vision for smart cities. So you can just believe that it's not going to be a really technical presentation, but a presentation that talks about India's vision and the opportunity that your company can actually have in the Indian terrain. Well, let me start with this. I think the idea of a smart city has caught the imagination of the world. Most of you would know that there are almost 3,000 smart city projects in different parts of the world running into billions of dollars of business. This is a kind of an estimate. If you look at the estimate, it says that India is something to the tune of $3 trillion business as far as smart cities is concerned. When our Prime Minister announced that he's going to build 100 smart cities last year, there were different kinds of reactions. There's a bunch of people who were very skeptical, very cynical that this project is not going to take off. But there's another bunch of people, perhaps people like me, who are optimistic that 100 smart cities is a possibility in India. So let me briefly talk about the perspective of people who are skeptics and cynics and the perspective of people like me who believe that India can actually build smart cities. The people who are very cynical that India cannot move towards smart city are looking at this picture of the existing scenario in India. The cities that experience a lot of pollution, traffic problems. Andy in his presentation repeatedly talked about how difficult it is for him to, keep moving in Bangalore traffic. So there's a bunch of people who believe that transitioning from a traditional Indian city to a smart city is very, very difficult for India. Because they look at statistics like this. Here, apparently, a recent study said that India has the largest number of polluted cities in the world. If you live in Delhi or keep visiting Delhi, there's always this conversation about how polluted Delhi is. And as compared to even Shanghai, Delhi is supposed to be beating Shanghai's pollution. So India does have these problems as of now. So the skeptics are saying, hey, it's not possible to really build smart cities in India. Well, they also talk about the traffic problems. You have problems in power supply, water supply, and health and education. So obviously, these are the biggest challenges. But for a typical business entity, they can make business only when there are problems. So typically, I have seen that most of the business enterprises around the world are not disillusioned about this scenario in India. They're pretty much happy that this is what gives them business opportunity. Well, let me give you the other perspective. The perspective that might perhaps give an opportunity to explore India market. Now, for people like me, I think this is the right time for India to embark on this smart journey, because I think there is a huge opportunity, and I'm going to just quickly talk about what they could be. Take a look at this picture. 2031, India is going to be really this much urbanized. Currently, in 2015, we are just 30% urbanized. But as you move along, go to 2031, India is going to be 60% urbanized. So why are we celebrating urbanization? Friends, just to be very clear about it, India in the last 67 years has never looked at urbanization as an advantage. It always thought urbanization is a pain because our investments were historically been in the rural hinterlands of the country. But today, we see that smart cities has a potential because the first time in the history of free independent India, we are looking at urbanization as an advantage. And For a country that is just 30% urbanized, our gross domestic product is 70% contribution comes from 30% of the urbanized India. So our cities are contributing 70%, and that too with no planned urbanization. This just happened. In fact, last night we were talking about how the city has grown. Any city, take Mumbai, take Bangalore, take Hyderabad. Hyderabad is now 4 times its original size with absolutely no planning. So notwithstanding the lack of planning, our cities are producing, our cities are performing. So we are contributing 70% of the gross domestic product with the existing scenario. But imagine a situation if we have planned urbanization, how much we could be contributing to the economy. Now, this is it. If India starts looking at planning its cities, then the economic development is going to be much, much higher. Just to refresh your memories, I don't know how many of you recall, there's this phenomenon called East Asian miracle. Back in late 90s, the East Asian miracle was about the East Asian economies like Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. All these countries have grown several times, entering into 2-digit gross domestic product. That's because those economies urbanized in a very planned way. India has missed the bus because India never looked at urbanization as an advantage. But today, imagine if India starts planning its infrastructure, starts looking at continuous water supply, giving housing for all, giving the right kind of infrastructure, the production is going to be much, much higher. So so this is another opportunity. This is a fantastic slide. So what you're seeing here is the snapshot of urbanization around the world. All the dark, the brown color that you see in Americas and Africa, all these is 80% urbanized countries. If you see the yellows, they are 60 to 70% urbanized. But take a look at India. India is somewhere between 30 to 40%. When the world has embarked on the smart cities mission, all the advanced nations have gotten into the game when they are 80% urbanized. But in India, we are starting a journey when we are just 30% urbanized. So we have what we call as the early mover advantage. We are starting much, much earlier than most countries. So obviously we have better chances of succeeding at that. According to me, we have also decided to embark on a smart journey, and we couldn't have thought of a better time, thanks to our Prime Minister. And let me just talk about why I'm saying this. First of all, today there is a global consensus about what is a smart city. You tap anyone and ask them about what is a smart city, maybe in the last 10 years, they would have told you several things. Some of them would have talked about isolated things like integrated intelligent transportation. Somebody would have talked about smart grids. Somebody would have talked about smart housing, smart buildings. But nobody gave you a clear, simple definition about what is a smart city. But today, after 10 years of experimentation, I think all the smart city efforts have started about 10 years ago with Barcelona. Cisco has adopted Barcelona. IBM was taken over IBM has taken Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. These were the 2 experiments that have been done by the technology majors in the United States. That was 10 years ago. There was confusion. Technology vendors went to mayors and told them, sir, this is what is a smart city. And the mayors bought it. So this continued for a very long time. But today, there is consensus, there is clarity about what is a smart city. And let me tell you what that is. Smart cities are nothing but cities that are livable and sustainable. They adhere to they rest on 3 pillars, let me say that. One is on economic development. So a smart city is nothing but a city that is economically vibrant. There are jobs, there's opportunity for entrepreneurs, there's opportunity for startups. Then smart cities is about environmental protection and safety. There's green everywhere. This is also about inclusion. So there's certain segments of society like the disabled or the senior citizens being included. So a smart city typically rests on all these cornerstones. So today the world has clarity and India has entered the game at this point in time. There's also another very brilliant thing that is happening. Historically, everybody would look at smart cities as investment heavy. They would say, how many $billion? For instance, let's take Songdo. The one in South Korea is $40 billion investment. So that is huge investments. But today, there is consensus that it's not just about investment, but it's about innovations too. Homegrown, simple innovations also is a part of smart cities. So India is now lucky that there is a consensus about what is a smart city. Take a look at this. Earlier, everybody would ask me this question, ma'am, is smart city only about technology? But today, people understand that technology is an enabler, and so is sustainable design. It's a combination of both. For some of you who have been to maybe Nordic countries like maybe Sweden, Stockholm is considered to be a very smart city. But most often there, people look at greeneries, people look at rooftop gardens, a park just 5 minutes from where you live. Last year, Copenhagen received a Smart City Award at Barcelona for one initiative called Connecting Copenhagen. Connecting Copenhagen is a very interesting project. They use technologies, they specially deployed big data, processed big data, to actually make the city green. So this is a fantastic mix of how technologies can actually move a city towards sustainability. So today's government of India has this big opportunity. And the most interesting part is this. Today, again, there is a consensus on what is a smart city. A smart city is nothing but a city that has the citizen at the core of its policy. Just like how a company like Fujitsu has a customer at the core of its business, we have in smart cities a citizen at the core. The infrastructure has to be designed around his requirements. The services have to be planned around his requirement. So this is a great time because this is the knowledge that India has got free of cost. India is entering the game at a time when there is a lot of realization about smart cities. 10 years ago, when there was a big hype, everybody's expectations rose. And they said smart cities are going to make our life easier. But that did not happen. So people were frustrated. And today, there is a lot of enlightenment. If you see the slope of enlightenment and plateau of productivity, the world today understands smart cities is a long-term game. And it has to be played in one particular way. And India has entered the smart city game just when this knowledge is freely available. Another very interesting slide that you must watch. 10 years ago, when smart cities were being attempted, every technology provider used to go and offer his services or solutions to cities. And everything was done in isolation. And nothing really worked for cities. But today, after 10 years of experimentation, they realize that it is possible to develop smart cities only when there is collaboration. That's why you see historically enemies like SAP and Oracle are working together. Cisco and IBM are working together. You can see all possible competitors coming under one roof trying to collaborate because that is the model that has worked now. So India is now ready to go on the smart path because this enormous amount of knowledge is available now. So no technology vendor is going to go solo. He has to look for a partner with complementary competencies. Another beautiful thing has happened, which perhaps as a technology company you should realize. This learning came from Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, they realized that there are technology companies that are coming together and helping the government, but they couldn't succeed because the local companies had to be brought in as local technology partners. And whenever there was a partnership with a homegrown local company, the multinationals were delivering goods. Now, this is the knowledge that Amsterdam gave. Take a look at Barcelona. Barcelona has given a framework to the world, and that is available free of cost to India. This is again about a partnership platform. So India stands real good because opportunities are, we have access to innovative financing models. We have today access to international best practices and benchmarks. 10 years ago, the technologies were nascent. They were not mature enough, but today the technologies are mature, and the costs of the very same technologies are coming down. So we have good opportunity today because we entered the game late, and what we have is now a late mover advantage. We moved 10 years late, and therefore we have the advantage. So the world actually became a research and development laboratory for India to draw from. So we can move further. Let me also talk about how ready India is in terms of smart city ecosystem. There are tech fests all over. This was not a phenomenon that we were used to. So every educational institution is now looking at tech fests, incubating ideas. Hackathons are happening day in and day out. I mean, even as we speak, I'm sure on this day, some 100 hackathons must be taking place in different parts of the country. Again, looking at newer ideas. Startup ecosystem is so vibrant. Today, the Chancellor of Germany was here, and our Prime Minister gave a speech, and 80% of his speech was about startup ecosystem. And for the first time in the history of India, we are investing 10,000 crores. Translated, it stands at $2 billion for encouraging startups. India started looking at innovation. At one time, we were just doing things only in one way. But today, innovation plays a major role in whatever we do. Just to give you a simple example, some of the technological innovations, I started seeing some of the innovations. Like for instance, there's someone who used augmented reality for diagnostics. There's someone who developed a small biosensor for a dismal amount of 5 rupees. There's someone who built chemotherapy using nanoparticles that can be just inhaled, because chemotherapy can be very painful and it has to be given intravenous, in an intravenous fashion. But this boy discovered nanoparticles, and they can actually attack the cells that are cancerous based on the pH level of the cells. Amazing discoveries, and all by Indians who are below 25. There's advanced prosthetics for amputees and 3D printed bionic arms. This is what is happening in India today. The ecosystem is getting ready for the next generation smart cities. We're also looking at very simple, not only technology innovations, but also product innovations, like a simple safety net based on sensor technologies. Sensors and actuators and cameras is passe for India today. We have, in my city itself, we have deployed so many. We are looking at product innovations to include senior citizens in the game. There are community innovations that are being planned. As I mentioned, smart cities is not only about technology, but this is about innovations. Simple, frugal innovations that can make a world of difference. Some of you would have seen the ice bucket challenge that originated in US. In my city, there's this young lady who thought that ice bucket challenge makes no sense to India. So she came out with an innovation called Rice Bucket Challenge. And she said, donate a bucket of rice rather than pouring a bucket of ice on your head. And that became an innovation that is much followed. Today, the entire Southeast Asian nations are doing it. The rice-eating countries are doing it, and it has gone viral. Simple thing to actually solve community problems. Low-cost housing designs are just coming up, and technology is again integrated into that. There's no time to talk about it, but perhaps at a later time. Crowdsourcing has become a part of our life today in India. We, from my organization side, we have crowdsourced 10 years ago for making our city livable. We had technology solutions that were even appreciated in Washington, D.C., because we did 10 years ago, and for which we got the national best practice recently. So So the Prime Minister obviously recognized our work, and this is me talking about what it is. So collaborations, my friends, has become a common thing now. I mean, every citizen wants to really dream about making his or her city smart. So that's it. And the most important thing as far as collaborations is concerned, there are at least 25 countries wanting to work with India on this game now. We have entered into legal partnerships, MOUs, with almost 25 countries that are trying to help India. All right, now let me come to the most important thing as far as your organization is concerned. So what is it that we are trying to do in India today under the smart cities? I'm not able to read it, but I'm sure you can. We are talking about simple things like infusing intelligence into the existing systems like water supply, infusing intelligence into existing systems like transportation, solid waste management. Can we use technologies? Can we use machine-to-machine communication to lift garbage off the streets? Can we use big data analytics to give a little bit of predictability onto our traffics? Can we use cloud to quickly process the city data that runs into petabytes just like that? So India is now exploring all kinds of opportunities in all the existing systems. This is where perhaps there is a big opportunity for companies like you that have been historically innovating in the area of technology. So we are also putting in efforts as a nation. We are putting in efforts in different areas, like we are building our competencies, we are cleaning up our contracting methods, we are developing standards. For instance, smart cities is not possible unless you have standards. So we're working on them. We have a work plan getting in place. We are cleaning up our public-private partnership concession agreements. We are developing ISO standards for each of the services. We are looking at reforms very strongly. So what you see in this slide is perhaps very easy for you to understand. Each of the Indian cities is going to have a city sentiment analysis, a tool that actually captures the sentiment of citizens and displays the existing scenario of a city. We have situation awareness tools that are being built. City dashboards are being made. Open data regime. Today, the government has thrown up the public data, so anyone can actually use the data and build apps so that we can move towards efficiency. India is setting up a big data institute because we realize there's enormous amount of value in big data. There's huge data that is locked up somewhere. We are trying to build our registries. We are trying to work with domain experts. We are trying to understand how to sanitize the data, use, maybe move everything to the cloud and understand the privacy and safety of hybrid and private clouds. We are also working on Universal Design Institute, which is perhaps the most important thing for a world that is moving towards inclusion. This building, I doubt if it is universally accessible. So we are looking at designing infrastructure that can be accessed by people who are disabled. So India is doing a lot of things as of now. So a bit of demonstrated capability. We have built the most important corridor in the world, which is a $100 billion project, which is touted to be one of the 10 large infrastructure projects of the world, called Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. We have kicked off several innovative projects in different parts of India. This is just a sample. There is crime analytics happening. There is predictive policing happening. There's different, you can see some of the initiatives that have started already in India. Smart grid pilots have taken off. There are something like 18 smart grid pilots. Some of you would know that smart grids is not an easy game. For instance, in UK itself, there are smart homes. And when smart homes have excess energy, they have to give back to the grid and earn money from that. But if you see in countries that are in Europe, the smart grids are not moving at a pace required to move because the smart homes are moving faster. So now this building, if it were to be an energy efficient building, it becomes not a consumer but a prosumer. So it produces more electricity, and that extra electricity has to be put onto the grid and you have to make money out of that. That is a smart grid. speaking both ways, exchanging data, crunching data, and giving whatever is required. That is not happening even in countries like UK, Germany. But in India, we are again trying just like them. So we have something like 18 smart grid pilots that we kicked off recently. So we have what we call as a wholesome approach to smart cities. That's why people like us are optimistic. We are talking about creating connections between different cities, laying freight corridors. That's a great thing. Then we have conceived Make in India, because smart cities cannot happen in isolation. We have to kick off the manufacturing that has been lying dormant. We are planning Digital India, that is giving digital infrastructure, connecting the entire country so that we can capitalize on the potential of each and every person. So this year, we're going to select 20 cities and help them move towards smartness. Next year, it's going to be 40, and after that, it's be 40. So maybe it's a 10-year game that my Prime Minister is playing, but we will certainly move towards smart cities sooner than later. So here you can see this particular slide talks about how technology companies have already started working with us. Schneider, Siemens, you can see IBM, Cisco. You can see many of them have already started working in big pilots, running into millions of dollars as of now. This is an important slide for you. Perhaps you could see it even at a later time. What I personally believe is there is this potential adoption of almost 12 empowering technologies in India. So it talks about cloud, it talks about IoT, the opportunity to help India get there. I'm not able to read most of them, but there are 12 technologies that I have outlined. There's opportunity in each one of them. So Fujitsu can actually explore these. And this is an important slide as far as how you make an entry into the country. So here, this is basically about how you have to identify an opportunity, build your solution to fit the opportunity in this country. It could be anything. It could be integrating senior citizens, like I read that you built a smart stick, a walking stick. So it could be a pain point for India. That's an opportunity for you. So build a solution, get your people in place, look for a partner, look for someone with whom you can collaborate and build a consortium, then meet the state heads and talk about the wholesome project or the solution that you have, become thought leaders, because India just cannot get into smart cities unless you advise the government on what really works. So become thought leaders. And in the end, what is important is to get your global expertise. You have to claim that this has worked in Tokyo. Like in Andy's presentation, he talked about several different examples. You say that this has worked in some part of the world, and we're bringing global knowledge on to your terrain. So this is what works as far as opportunity goes. So my last slides are about this. You talk about human-centric innovation, and we are also talking the same. We say make your innovation more relevant to people who live in this city. It could be senior citizens, it could be the disabled. Or make it more appropriate for people who aspire to have a city like this. This was a painting done by someone in my city, and that is his vision for a smart city. He's put tall buildings on her head. He's made her wear an outfit that speaks about solar generation of electricity. He's talked about green buildings on her, on her legs. So this is a dream. So people are talking about economic development, jobs for all. They're talking about environmental protection. They're talking about inclusion. Make everything accessible and let the potential of people be realized. So my last slide is about India and the smart vision. In conclusion, I'd like to just say that year after year in World Economic Forum, they talk about how to lift people out of poverty, how to create jobs, the end bottom of the pyramid opportunities. But as far as India is concerned, there's not a pyramid structure at all. India today is a diamond structure. We don't have a pyramid. We don't have too many people, poor people down at the bottom. We have a diamond shape. The center of the diamond is the middle class, the people who are intellectuals, who are educated, but who are not really super rich, or people who are not really living in shanty towns or slums. So this is the growing India that gives enormous amount of opportunity. Like almost 6 billion people are in the center of that diamond. So there is opportunity to really capitalize on that. The second thing is the economic outlook for India, my friends, and why you have to start looking at it as a potential investment destination is that when Christine Lagarde, the IMF chief, visited India, she spoke a lot. But in the end, when she concluded, she said that India is the only bright spot on a largely gloomy world economy. So she said the world economy is gloomy and dark, and India is a bright spot on that. So that's perhaps the reason why India has to be looked at favorably. And our Prime Minister is talking about a $20 trillion economy. And recently, let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg, who actually went to, apparently this is actually happened, he went to Steve Jobs when he actually wanted to not expand his company. People were coming to buy Facebook. And Steve Jobs apparently told him, go to India once. So this, I don't know whether you know, he came to India and his pessimism dissipated because he saw a large number of people and he understood the value of relationships. So even today, when any country tries to look at India, we are a fantastic test bed for any kind of technologies. We have enormous amount of diversity, and we have great potential to absorb technologies that are being built globally. So I wish that Fujitsu looks at this as a great opportunity to increase and enhance your footprint in my country. Thank you very much.